The United Kingdom almost went into a recession in 2023, and GDP is expected to only grow 1% this year. Restrictive policy is having a hard effect on the economy, and policymakers are starting to step in. The Bank of England has joined the party of interest rate cuts. The European Central Bank did it. The Canadian Central Bank did it. The United States is flirting with the idea of doing it, and the Bank of England has joined the party, just cutting interest rates from 5.25 down to 5%, the first interest rate cut by them in over 4 years. And it's something that almost did not take place, and also something that they did not signify that they were going to do. Now, before we get started, let me just say that if you like content like this, leave a comment down below letting me know what you think. Make sure you subscribe for more content like this and hit that thumbs up button for me. All across the globe, central banks are starting to shift monetary policy. As inflation from the COVID pandemic starts to become a thing of the past, central banks are starting to face other issues. The United Kingdom almost went into a recession in 2023, and GDP is expected to only grow 1% this year. Restrictive policy is having a hard effect on the economy, and policymakers are starting to step in. Not to mention, Britain is also facing social issues right now, civil unrest within the country. A lot of it within the last few days stems from a stabbing that took place at a children's dance class. Just something that should never ever take place, something that's horrible. And before we talk about economics, let me just say that people, we have to do better than that. We should never wish harm or do harm to other people, especially children. We have to be better than this, stronger than this. At any point where we start to resort to violence, things do not get better, they only get worse, they get more escalated. Violence only breeds more violence. We have to do better than this as a society. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, violence is not the answer. Even if you are upset with things, there are better ways to solve issues. Now, with that being said, Britain is also facing economic issues. The outlook for the country is not very good. It doesn't seem like growth is going to be there anytime soon. Again, 1% growth this year, and moving forward, it doesn't really project to grow much more than that. And you need bigger growth than 1% in order to have a strong economy. It's just not there right now for Britain. So policymakers are stepping in, and they are dropping rates right now in an effort to try to stimulate the economy and get some better growth going. And it's interesting to note too that this rate cut almost did not take place. It passed by a vote of 5-4. So literally the slimmest margin, one other person voting the other way, and it would not have took place at all. And the Bank of England did not signify that they were going to drop rates. That none of the comments that they made in previous statements and interviews kind of hinted towards this. And just completely different than what the Federal Reserve just did. The Fed just had a meeting, and literally Jerome Powell did everything but say we are going to be cutting rates. But the Bank of England has always, forward guidance. They're a little bit more, close to the chest, and they don't show as much. This is how they've been for a long time, and this is just one example where you see where the Bank of England, they did not signify or tell you that they were going to be cutting rates. It kind of came as a little bit of a surprise, and that's just the way that the Bank of England operates. A 0.25 rate cut, and in all honesty, I think that they're going to sit on this for a little while. 0.25, and they're going to just let all the data start to flow in. They're going to analyze the data, see how this affects the economy. Now, their next meeting is going to be September 19th for the Bank of England, and I do not think that they are going to cut rates again at that time. Now, I could be completely wrong, but the way that I see it, I think that they did this rate cut right now. They're going to just let all the data flow in and hope that this affects the economy and gets things going in a positive way. They're going to have that meeting in September, probably to discuss this rate cut and what went on. But I do not think that they will cut rates again at that time. They have a meeting penciled in for November and one for December. I think that if we were to see another rate cut from the Bank of England, the end of the year, probably that November date, would be the time that it would happen. Now, I could be completely wrong, and it depends on how the data comes in. Obviously, they're very fluid, that could change things. But as of right now, with this rate cut, I think they're going to sit on it, and it won't be until November that they cut rates again, because you don't want to do it too quickly either, for inflation to start to heat up, and then you have to shift policy again, and it's just a bad look. And these bankers, they're a lot smarter than this. Economists, these are people that know what they're doing for the most part. They manipulate markets, and I think that is how it's going to play out. The strength of the US dollar only increases with this. Now, when the Federal Reserve starts to cut rates, obviously that's going to play into it as well. And you're going to see fluctuations in the Forex market and trading, and that's just kind of how it goes. But with Britain cutting interest rates, it will strengthen the dollar, it will weaken the pound and weaken the euro, as you have already seen markets kind of price that in as far as currency markets go. But when the Fed starts to drop rates, it's going to only continue to fluctuate. And honestly, there's money to be made with all that fluctuation if you do currency trading and things like that. And it's interesting because a lot of central banks will not move until the Federal Reserve moves because of that. They will let the Fed set certain policies, and they will do their policies based off of the Federal Reserve because of the strength of the dollar and how it affects the US dollar. Obviously, there's Europe and Britain, they did not do, and Canada also, they did not do that. Dropping rates to try to stimulate their economies while they also want their currencies to perform in a good way. It's not the only reason why they move rates around. There are times where countries will wait for the Fed and do their policy based off of what the Fed does. But if the economic data calls for them to shift rates before the Fed does anything, they will absolutely do that, because that is their job. That is what they are supposed to do. But in this situation, Britain didn't do that, and we see that it's having an effect on their currency. If you like content like this, leave a comment down below letting me know what you think. Make sure you subscribe for more content like this, and hit that thumbs up button for me.